So today I wanted to give my top 10 teams post Super Bowl. Now these are my top 10s from the way I see it. I may miss something from these teams. I may miss something from other teams. Because to be honest, and some of these teams I don't have on my top 10, like the Buccaneers, because of Tom Brady retiring and there being a very low chance that Tom Brady does go back to Tampa Bay. I don't have Tampa Bay on this list, and you're going to see one of these teams who I have very, very high on this list that some people might question. But anyways, let's get into my top 10 teams post Super Bowl. Coming in at number 10, I have the Tennessee Titans. Yes, they lost to the Bengals in a game that they probably should have won. If Ryan Tannehill wasn't their quarterback and a handful of other guys were their quarterback, they probably won that game. But this team as a whole is still a very good football team. They have a very, very good defense, basically a great defense. The Titans have. They have a very good offense. They have A.J. Brown, who, at times in the season wasn't necessarily the focal point, but he was hurt at times. But once A.J. Brown gets going, he's unstoppable. And then they have Derrick Henry, who, yes, was injured at times. And then they have Mike Vrabel, who's just an amazing head coach, who, for a team that played 91 different players and the fact that they were able to be the number one seed in the AFC through all of that, yeah, the Bengals, very disappointing loss. Ryan Tannehill, in my opinion, was the sole reason why the Titans didn't beat the Bengals in the divisional round. But everything that the Titans went through and the fact that they were able to become the number one seed and all the talent that they do have, and let's be honest, they probably will be able to sustain a lot of that talent. I still think the Titans definitely are going to win their division, which is a very weak division. And I still think the Titans have a very good chance to be back in the playoffs next season. Coming in at number 9, a team that some people may not have, but I personally do, is the New England Patriots. Now, yes, they had a disgusting loss against the Buffalo Bills in the wild card round. Their defense, which for a Bill Belichick defense, that was a pathetic, disgusting, very, very bad performance that defense had against Buffalo. But you look at the Patriots and who they are. They're always going to have a very good defense. I don't think that letdown that they had against the Bills is going to happen a second time. You look at Bill Belichick, probably the greatest head coach of all time. Yes, they're going to have to fill holes. They just lost Josh McDaniels. But Bill Belichick, the best defensive coach of all time, the best coach of all time just in general. And Mac Jones going into year 2, who I would assume is, if people think what he can be is a little bit better than what he is, we can definitely assume that the Patriots will be better next season. We assume that Mac Jones is going to be able to take a leap and become a better quarterback. And I have nothing to doubt that the Patriots are going to be back eventually to at least being a playoff team every single year, and a team that you can just rely on being good, nothing flashy, nothing fancy, just a really good, solid football team. And I have zero doubts that the Patriots are going to be a good team next year, and I have them at number 9. Coming in at number 8 is the Dallas Cowboys. It is very hard for me to trust the Cowboys when it comes to anything, especially for the fact that Mike McCarthy is still their head coach, and the fact that they made a really dumb, boneheaded decision against the 49ers in that divisional round. That was one of the dumbest, if not the dumbest play call of this entire football season. It's inexcusable. It's really, really bad. And it was a very disappointing loss for the Cowboys to have every year the Cowboys have all this hype around them, and then to lose their first playoff game, that's really, really bad. But they do have a few things that are going for them, even though I just think the Cowboys are going to be overhyped as usual. I think they have things going for them. They have a very good defense that from last year definitely stepped up and was much better. They have great talent on offense, and they have Dak Prescott, who had a very, very good season. Like, we can't deny that. But the games that Dak Prescott played amazing, outstanding, or against his division, which his division is very weak and very bad. So that is a huge question mark going into next season. We know they're going to win their division next season. There's zero doubts about that. The question is can this team take that step, at least win a playoff game? I think the Cowboys at this point, forget the overhype of them going to the Super Bowl. If they can win a playoff game next year, I think that'll do it. But they still have a lot of talent, and they still have Dak, who at times is a very, very good quarterback. Now he needs a run game to help sustain that good quarterback play, but I still think Dak Prescott is definitely a top quarterback. And then you look at the NFC right now, at this point, there should be zero excuses for the Cowboys being bad, because the NFC has maybe 2 quarterbacks that are really, really good. You have Russell Wilson and Matthew Stafford, and it depends on what happens with Aaron Rodgers, maybe Aaron Rodgers. So there's really only 4 quarterbacks in the NFC that are top tier right now. And next year, I feel like just right now, yes, I think the Cowboys are a top 10 team in the NFL post Super Bowl. But going into next season, if they don't make a run next season, it'll be a very disappointing season for a team that gets a whole bunch of hype every single year. But I have the Cowboys at number 8. Coming in at number 7, again, a team that might be a little too high, I have the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers, in my opinion, have everything but a quarterback, and I think Jimmy Garoppolo still gets more hate than what he deserves. That dude, all he has done since he joined San Francisco in his 2 full seasons that he was healthy, he wins games, he makes it to the NFC Championship game, and he led a team to a Super Bowl. Yes, he was very disappointing down the stretch in the NFC Championship game. You know, the Rams they completely blew up the 49ers offense, and they couldn't do anything wrong. But if you look at everything outside of quarterback, there's no reason to doubt that the 49ers won't be good next year unless they get injured like it seems to hit the 49ers. They have a very good defense. They have an elite defensive line that can rotate 7, 8 guys throughout the entire game. A great offensive line. They have the most electric player in the entire NFL in Deebo Samuel. You have Brandon Ayuk, who is coming into his own, and it doesn't matter who their running back is, they're going to find wide open holes and they're going to rush for 1,000 yards every season just because of Kyle Shanahan. So I like almost everything that the 49ers do. It's just when it comes to their quarterback situation, I don't know if I feel comfortable with that because we don't know what Trey Lance is going to be, but they probably won't have Jimmy Garoppolo back. Now, with the 49ers, I think there are 2 people that could go there. Tom Brady, if he does find a way out of Tampa Bay, retire, they release him, and then he goes to San Francisco. Or if Aaron Rodgers wants to be traded to San Francisco, I think that's also viable. If either one of those 2 happen, I instantly think the 49ers are the absolute favorites in the NFC. If the 49ers land a great quarterback, to me, the 49ers are the closest thing to possibly being the favorites in the entire NFC. But they have question marks at quarterback, but everything around them, a very good football team. And I have zero doubts that the 49ers are going to be back and being good next year. Coming in at number 6, this is the one where it's really, really high and people aren't going to like this if they watch this far into the video. That is the Baltimore Ravens. Yes, I said that. The Baltimore Ravens are at number 6. I blame every single bit of downfall to this Ravens team to injury. I have zero doubts if the Ravens never got injured last year, they would have made the playoffs. I have zero doubts about that. Injuries literally killed the Ravens' entire season. Yes, I had them on my most disappointing team list. And then, yes, it's not their fault. Yes, you could have put another team there. But if you look at the Ravens, their season was completely destroyed by injuries. I have zero doubts. You have John Harbaugh, who is easily one of the best coaches in the entire NFL. And you have the Ravens organization that, yes, at times they may be bad, but they are one of the most consistent franchises in the entire NFL. I have zero doubts they're going to be good next year. There is no way that their entire secondary is going to be injured for the entire season. They're going to have to be playing practice squad members the entire time. And there's no way they're going to lose their top 3 running backs in the preseason again. I don't see that happening. So the Ravens, I have zero doubts they're going to be back, and I think Lamar Jackson, he is overhyped and a bit overrated in my eyes. Is he a bad quarterback? No. If Lamar Jackson was on the market and you needed a quarterback, take him. I don't think he's an elite passer, but I think he does enough where he can be good for a football team. He can run the ball very well. Their offensive line was a bit shaky at times this year. That's got to get a little bit revamped. But I have zero doubts, again, with the Ravens. They will be back. This was just an unfortunate season. I know they're really high, and I know I have nothing basis off of what they did last season, other than the fact they were injured to hell and back. Yes, I really do believe the Ravens are one of the top 10 teams in the NFL, even number 6, because the injuries that they had were just absolutely brutal, and I can't put all the blame on anybody on that Ravens organization. The injuries literally killed the Baltimore Ravens season. Coming in at number 5, we have the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, I know they could be low because they were just in the Super Bowl, but we can't overreact a little bit too much because, as you'll see, I don't have the Rams as the number 1 team. But there's things you can look at for the Bengals, I should say. You can't overlook them. Joe Burrow, his talent is undeniable. Now, I don't think he was anything special in these playoffs because I think his defense definitely contributed to most of the success in this team. You look at what they did against the Raiders. The Raiders were on the cusp of scoring. Their defense, was able to get an interception in that game for them. Against the Titans, the defense was able to force 3 interceptions. The offensive line for the Bengals couldn't protect anything in that game. And then you look at the game against the Chiefs. the defense was able to hold the Chiefs to basically nothing in the entire second half. While Joe Burrow, I think, is great, he's a top-tier talent. He wasn't anything special in these playoffs, but I don't think that's going to continue. Joe Burrow, just the type of guy he is, he will be very good in the playoffs in the future. I have zero doubts about that. You have the offensive talent: Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, CJ Uzomah, Jamar Chase, Joe Mixon. You have the offensive talent. You have the defense, which, I think Joe Burrow is good enough that you don't need a top tier defense. You can have a little bit above average, but, an average defense, and I think they'll be fine. The one thing that's holding this entire Bengals team back, in my opinion, is an offensive line. If they had an offensive line, there's a very good chance they possibly win that Super Bowl. And I'm not even kidding. Joe Burrow had no protection whatsoever, and Aaron Donald just killed the Bengals late in that game. If they had any resemblance in an offensive line, I think the Bengals would be a much better team. Now, Burrow getting injured in that Super Bowl really just comes down to that bad offensive line. So I really think that the Bengals, they'll be back with a vengeance. Now they're in a loaded AFC, which is going to be very, very tough. But I still think that the Bengals, they'll be back. I still think they're a top 5 team in the NFL. If they can upgrade their offensive line, I think it's going to be a very tough team to beat next year and in the future, with Joe Burrow as their quarterback and all the young talent that they have on their team. Coming in at number 4, you have the Green Bay Packers. Now again, this may be a team that's a little bit high, and they are in deep trouble when it comes to their money and everything, because they're going to have to give Aaron Rodgers a lot of money if he wants to come back. So that part there does worry me a little bit about the Packers. But personally, do I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be back with the Packers? Yes. I don't think. I think anybody on TV that says he's not going to be, I think they want it for hot takes. And, even me, if he goes anywhere, I personally do believe that it's going to be somewhere like San Francisco, maybe Pittsburgh. Like, let's be honest, I think that Aaron Rodgers is going to be back in Green Bay. So the success on this team squarely lies on Aaron Rodgers coming back, but they also need Devontae Adams to come back, and they are in a very bad situation when it comes to their money. They're going to have to cut some guys. They're going to have to move on from some guys. They're going to have to move money around to be able to sustain, because their defense, as good as it was last year, for what they're trying to do for Aaron Rodgers, they might be in trouble next year when it comes to their defense, trying to keep everybody while making Aaron Rodgers happy. So that'll be that's going to be tough, and that's going to be fun to look at going into this offseason. But I still think the Packers, no matter what, they're going to be a top 4 team in the NFL. I think Aaron Rodgers comes back. I think that team is, as much as they thought this was the last dance, I think that Aaron Rodgers will be back. And I think, this will truly be, if it's not this year, Aaron Rodgers has maybe 2-3 more years with the Packers. And I think Aaron Rodgers, he'll want to come back to Green Bay, finish what he started. He wants to get back to a Super Bowl, win another ring desperately. Like, I think and doing it with Green Bay, I think would just make him feel a little bit better. But the Packers as a whole, as much as they're going to have to work on talent-wise, especially Adams, especially Rodgers, those do worry me going into the offseason for the Packers, but I still think they'll be okay and in a good spot next year. Coming in at number 3, we have the Kansas City Chiefs. Nope, I'm not going to let my homerness let them be the number 1 team. That's not happening. But they did have a very disappointing loss against the Bengals in the AFC Championship game. They completely stunk it up after that last play of the second quarter and then all the second half. It was really bad. It was inexcusable. Like, I'm one of the few people. Everybody says Mahomes played bad. I'm not going to deny Mahomes played bad in that second half. Like, that there's no way to deny that. Mahomes played his worst half of football of his entire career in that second half in overtime. Like, I won't deny that. But I am going to sit here and I say the coaches deserve the same, if not more, blame for how that game went than Mahomes does. That play call at the end of the first half should never have been called. Them not giving Jerick McKinnon the ball in the second half, inexcusable. Running for 7 yards and then throwing an interception on the very next play, inexcusable. Everything that happened down in the red zone at the end of the football game where, Mahomes was put, he couldn't, yes, that part could have been on Mahomes, but at that point, I think they should have been running the ball at that point too. So yes, there's this team as a whole, that AFC Championship game was bad. I'm not writing on the AFC Championship game. Yes, they had some really, really bad play calls throughout these playoffs. You look at the divisional round, you had, the Blake Bell sneak, cute little play that kind of led to the, what we thought, me personally, I thought was going to be the end of the Chiefs' hopes of winning that game. You had the cute play with Hardman and Darrell Williams. I hated that play that led to the TJ Watt touchdown. But, after let alone those plays, this Chiefs offense looked just as good, if not better, than it ever had before in the time of Mahomes in their 2 playoff wins against Pittsburgh and against Buffalo. Like 13 seconds, Mahomes was able to achieve a lot more than any of us could. Like, Mahomes was masterful in these playoffs all the way up until that final play of the first half of the AFC Championship game. So I have zero worries about this team. I don't think they're going to make those same dumb mistakes that they, have been making, in these playoffs. I really don't think that's going to happen. They're going to improve, and I fully expect Brett Veach to make the correct moves and help this team become better. But, as much as it's disappointing that they lost that game, I have zero doubts that this team is going to be back possibly better than ever. Every year you got to go in with that mindset. And I have zero doubts. As disappointing as that AFC Championship game loss was, I have zero doubts that this team is going to come back better and possibly better than ever. But yes, I have the Chiefs at number 3. Coming in at number 2, yes, I have the Super Bowl champion Rams at number 2. Yes, I know it's weird having the recent Super Bowl champions at number 2, but hear me out. Like, the talent that they're possibly going to lose this offseason is kind of massive for them. Yes, OBJ was injured. There's a chance that he won't be back. And if he does come back, he won't be back until later into next season. You look at Von Miller. He said he wanted to test free agency. So, there's a chance he could be gone. You have Aaron Donald and Sean McVay, who are both threatening retirement, even though those are probably just them both, wanting to get a bigger contract for themselves, which, makes total sense. They deserve their money. They played very, very well. I still have the Rams at number 2, but the only reason why they're not number 1 is because sustaining all these guys that they've got this season, I think is going to be very, very hard for them. And I don't think they're going to be able to, I think they have a good chance of being the number 1 team in the NFC because it's so, heavy with the 3 quarterbacks and 3 teams, because the NFC has no competition. Like, I have zero doubts they're going to be good again, but it's just, the chances of them losing all their top talent into going into next season really stinks. But they still have Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp, who are the most dominant wide receiver quarterback combo in the entire NFL. So I still think the Rams are going to be a very good team going into next season, but I don't think they're going to be better than this number 1 team. Coming in at number 1, we have the Buffalo Bills. Nope, I'm not going to let my homerness, my frustrations with the Bills at times this season, I'm not going to let that distract from the fact that the Buffalo Bills, for as bad as Josh Allen played at times this season, and I know bad is a little bit harsh word, he was not bad. He just struggled at times this season. Josh Allen is one of the best quarterbacks in the entire NFL. I have him neck and neck with Mahomes. Like, you can flip them 1A, 1B, whenever you want. I really do believe those two are the 2 best quarterbacks in the entire NFL right now. Josh Allen literally played the 2 most perfect playoff games I think I've ever seen in the NFL. The way he destroyed the Patriots defense and the way that, he against it in the divisional round, Josh Allen literally played a perfect football game and he wasn't able to come up with a victory. Most people will say this is an excuse. No, this is a reason. In that game, he played Patrick Mahomes. That is the reason they lost. That's not the excuse. That is the reason that they lost. So I have zero doubts that this Buffalo Bills team is going to come back even better than they were last year. Yes, their record may not be perfect, but they built this entire team to do what they did in the playoffs. I know they lost, but come on, who's coming out of that game? Yes, I think Mahomes was a tad bit better in that game, just he came out with the victory. But if Josh Allen came in with that victory, obviously Josh Allen would have been the better quarterback in that game. There's no doubts about that. I have zero doubts about Josh Allen anymore about watching these playoffs. I don't care what happened in the regular season game. Yes, I think he struggled against the Falcons. That doesn't worry me anymore. What he did in this playoffs was masterful. And the Bills as a whole, they have the number 1 defense in the NFL they had last year. Yes, they got destroyed by the Chiefs, but I have zero doubts that this defense is going to be just as good as they were last year. And they still have an amazing offense and one of the best quarterbacks in the entire NFL. And I really do think that the Bills are going to be one of the most dangerous teams in the NFL heading into next season. But those are my top 10 teams heading into this offseason, my post-Super Bowl power rankings. Give me your post-Super Bowl power rankings down below, and I'll see you in the next one.